Good morning, everybody. This is Clint Neill here with you this morning for week 3 of our webinar series on food as a business. If you joined us in the last 2 weeks, you heard from Dr. Travis Mountain and Conaway Haskins talking about liability and liability insurance, as well as community and economic resources. I'm happy to be your main speaker today. So food as a business, to give you a little bit of a background, is the extension program that my name is attached to with Virginia Cooperative Extension. So if you ever want any more information on this, do check out my webpage on the extension website. We do offer full and half-day workshops as well in your area. If you're an extension agent, or if you're not, contact your extension agent and we can plan something to get it out there. But just a reminder, everybody, please keep yourself on mute until we get to the end of the presentation, and then we'll take questions through the chat and everything. I'm still working on getting the previous webinars onto a link onto my webpage, which I will send that out to everybody on the listserv and everything like that once we have it. But keep that, it should be coming very soon. But today we're talking about branding your product. And so we're going to talk a little bit about what's the difference between a label and a logo and how that plays into your brand. To give you a little bit of background on me, I'm an assistant professor and extension specialist here in the Department of Ag and Applied Economics at Virginia Tech. I mostly provide the materials and resources to help you plan your business venture. I'm not the person that does the business planning for you. I kind of put all the resources together in one spot to help you get started, which is the web page as well as the workshops. And then really your first line of defense is your extension agent and then your local small business development center. But I can always answer those questions at a different point in time. My other role is to clarify a lot of marketing labels, those that are regulated and some that aren't regulated. So things like organic and natural, but other things like, what does fresh mean? Sometimes fresh is regulated and sometimes it's not. And so I do a lot of that and provide information on market trends, mostly what a consumer is wanting in different types of food products. And I try to keep up with informing people of those trends over time. But that's just a little bit about me before we got started. I know you've heard my voice for 2 weeks, the prior 2 Fridays, and now it's my turn. And so I wanted to give you a good introduction to who I am. But let's jump into this. So when we talk about branding, what are we really talking about? What is a brand? And so it's really that unique set of things, the design of a label, the sign that you use, any sort of symbols or words, and all of those things that create an image that when people try to look for your product, that's what they find, right? Is your brand. Now, why do we talk about branding? Because branding is all about, a lot of times we have brand loyalty when we talk, when we try to market our things. Some people are diehard fans of the iPhone and some people are diehard fans of the Android. And so brand loyalty does play a part in a lot of what this is, but it's also about identifying your company and your products and separating that from your competitors. Now, your brand, again, has one clear objective, and that is to attract customers. When you see that Facebook logo, or you see the Apple iPhone logo and the Starbucks logo, you immediately know what those companies are: Facebook, Apple, Starbucks, and you know a lot about what they stand for, right? Starbucks is really about being sustainable, but also making sure that their customers have coffee in their hands or all these other types of things. And so making sure that, or understanding that your brand is more than just a sign, a symbol, or anything like that, but it's also communicating a lot of what you are and attracting the customers that you want to attract. So when we talk about branding, right, we make some real clear distinctions here between what the product is and what you're offering, whether it be a jam, a jelly, whether you're a lawn care service, you know, those types of things are products and services, and what's different and what is a brand. So a product is simply, you know, made in a kitchen or a factory, or a service that you provide. It can be copied by competition, right? Anybody can also offer a jam or a jelly or a barbecue sauce. And it can be quickly outdated because there's always going to be something new, always something different. And really, when you have this product, like, when you only think about a product as itself, so if it doesn't have any, it's not affiliated with the company or anything, it's just, there's this jar of jam sitting on my counter, you know, that's a commodity price. There's nothing saying anything about that product. But it does have a functional value, right? Excuse me. We purchase products because it does something for us. Now, a brand is bought by a consumer, right? They want something that it fits with them, of whatever they think about the products they buy, what kind of attributes they want, what kind of things that they intangibly want part of in their buying habits. It's very unique. Brands cannot be copied. We have copyright laws for a reason. We have trademark laws. We have all those things to protect your brand and who you are. And so competition can't go, oh, well, I'm going to start calling myself, you know, Virginia Gourmet, but Virginia Gourmet is its own thing. I can't copy that. A brand can enjoy a really long lifespan too, right? It's going to go well beyond just, you know, your lifespan. It could, right? I mean, Apple has been going far beyond Steve Jobs, and now it's Tim Cook is in charge of it. But that brand and that type of thing still commands a lot of attraction from consumers. And this is where we start saying, okay, well, my brand has quality associated with it, so I know that I can command more of a premium price. Now, we still can't outprice ourselves, right? We can continue to get a little bit of extra income off of our price, or increase our price a little bit. But it's this idea that, you know, it means something now. And a brand that has functional value as well as non-functional value, right? That functional value does come from the product, from that quality that you're insinuating through your brand, but also that you have this ability, right, that it's not just about the function of the product, it's also about the status, right? You know, we divide our lines with phones, especially. I have an iPhone, and, you know, that's my status, right? I feel superior in some ways because I have an iPhone, right? And other people feel the same way about having an Android. It's that kind of idea that, you know, it has some functional value, but it also has some non-functional value about status, about where you lie in society and things like that. But general things about branding, to really obviously make the distinction here, you know, oranges are a product, Sunkist is a brand. Hot dogs are a product, Oscar Mayer is a brand. So understanding that distinction and making sure that you're not just saying, oh, here's my tomato sauce, here's my, you know, the lettuce that I'm selling at the farmer's market. People want to know about who you are, your farm, your background, what are you bringing to the table? And so branding, right, you have to have a brand to have a place in the market. Because if you don't have a brand, a jar of jam sitting on the grocery store shelf that has nothing on it, right, is not going to attract any customers. Now, you need to use that, you know, in communication strategies and communicate your message through your brand. What are you talking about? Are you about sustainability in farming and in the environment? Are you about business sustainability? Are you about being, you know, having low environmental impacts, being environmentally friendly? Make sure that your brand communicates that. And how does this relate? You know, and that really relates to the emotions of consumers. But one thing we're going to really make a distinction of in this throughout the rest of this presentation is that you have a logo and you have labels, and those are your two marketing pieces to really build your brand. And there's a difference, and we need to make sure it's a difference, right? And how to use those different types of things. So what is a logo? A logo is what we use to identify our company. You know, we talked about, you know, Facebook and Starbucks as well as Apple. You know, that's a very distinct symbol that is used to identify those companies, and it instantly, you know, you snap your fingers, I know exactly when I look at that Apple sign or that Starbucks symbol, I know exactly what that company is and who they are. And now it takes time to build that brand or that brand using that type of logo, but that is what a logo is. It is something very distinct and brings that recognition. Now logos usually have kind of three different visual components that we talk about. The first one is color, second one is font, and then we have images. Now an effective logo should offer three things to your consumers. Identification, like we talked about, I want to immediately identify that. It needs to be distinct. It doesn't need to be like everybody else's, right? We want to make sure that we're not playing into, oh, it kind of looks like our competitor over here. No, we want to be very distinct. And it communicates what you are and the products you offer or the services you offer. And then we have different types of logos, like a font-based logo, which we'll talk about here in a minute, literal illustrations, and then abstract symbols. So identification, right, is all about identifying the company to the outside world. We want to make sure that it is immediately identifiable, that it's not like our competitors, that they're not confused about, oh, well, this looks really similar to my competitor. How do I use that? How, you know, who is this and that type of thing. Distinction, right, it is different. So our little gold pencil here, right, this is you, the sharpest tool in the shed, about making that difference and being completely different. So we've identified, people can identify who we are, and we are distinct from our competitors. And then communication, so it says something about your organization. It says, you know, Apple is very modernized. It's very much about the iPhone and smartphones and tablets and fancy computers and those types of things. And Facebook, it's all about connecting to people, and we get what that brand is based off of that logo and the branding message they've used. Now, when we talk about logo types, you know, the font-based one is one that a lot of people like to use because it has the company name in it. And so it's always just the company name usually, but it's some stylistic font that really stands out. So Coca-Cola is the one that we typically see a lot of. Dr. Pepper, if you're from the South like me, I'm from Texas, so Dr. Pepper's, you know, kind of my go-to thing. Coca-Cola has this very stylized font. You look at it, you know exactly who the company is, you know what their product offerings are, and you know how, you know, they've made that distinction and identification of who they are, and it also says something about them, right? Since, you know, we're kind of fancy, we're not these generic types of sodas and pop drinks and things like that. It's more about, you know, we're the standard kind of thing in soda. The other type of logo is kind of the literal illustration. So we have the example here, a flat top lawn care. You know, they have somebody pushing a lawnmower, mowing some grass. It's very illustrative. It shows people what you're doing. It's not just about the company name. The company name is also part of the logo here, but it's also showing us what they are. And that makes it a little more identifiable about what's good, you know, what the company does and, you know, the services they offer. And it also says on here, you know, support your local merchant. That's saying that logo is still communicating the qualities that they want their customers to, they think their customers are going to resonate with, which is supporting local businesses. And so this type of logo is really unique. It stands out, right? You've got the company name, you know exactly what the product offering is, even if you've never heard of flat top lawn care, right? You know what they're doing. And it really communicates. This is a really good example of what it's communicating about the company. And our third type of logo is the abstract symbols. And so you see the check mark here. I know all of you are going, oh, that's Nike, right? This is very different. It is trademarked and those types of things. And this identifies with a company's brand and image all at the same time. Abstract symbols are much riskier to use when you're trying to brand your product, because you have to create that association of, this is my company. And Nike has been around for a long time. They've put out a lot of ads, right? They have a lot of money to do this. When you're a smaller business, an abstract symbol probably isn't the best way to go unless you have a lot of backing and financial support to really advertise and get that out there. Then you have a little bit more leeway to use these types of logos. But once it's recognizable, everybody knows what it is. And so that's where Nike's been successful. But again, there's not a company name on here. You know, I really don't know what the communication strategy is unless I know, you know, they've built the brand, which Nike has. And so that's kind of where that goes. Now those are logos. Now what are labels? And so again, there's a distinction here. So the label is attached to the product or service. You know, we can talk a little bit about services, but it's attached to the product to inform consumers with a variety of information about the product. Now, a label should always include the company logo, but it's telling the consumer a lot more about what is the product. So when we say this product is organic, this product is non-GMO, this product is natural, it's fresh, those types of communication strategies about the information of the product, about how it's produced, or telling the farm background, the farm story, those types of things go on a label. You also have labels that are mandatory, right? That are mandatory and regulated by different health agencies or Food and Drug Administration or VDACs or different things like that. You know, some of it's mandatory, having a nutrition facts label, listing your allergens. Those are labels that need to go on your product, and they're mandatory, and that's what the label's doing. It's informing the consumer about it. It is all about the facts. This is not necessarily about opinions, because opinions get a little skewed. This is where you should report facts of, we are organic, or this is made in an organic way, we're not certified. You know, this milk was produced with no hormones, RBST free, those types of things are facts. And about that, and being really careful about what is regulated by a state or federal agency and what is not, is really where you need to pay attention and do your homework. It really functions as the first impression of the product and should carry this unique, visually appealing design, right, that communicates your brand. So using similar fonts with your brand on your logo and throughout all of your labeling process is important. Sometimes it's standardized. Again, the nutrition facts label is standardized. They have a font. You need to keep with that. But talking about these other things is important, and making sure that that communicates the same thing. So here we have the principal display panel, right? Part of the label this is what people see in the grocery store, right? We've got our logo up top, which is Splenda, no calorie sweetener. They have the stylized font use of a label, but they also talk about, you know, the common name of the product. It's a sweetener, you know, it displays the net quantities. Some of that's regulated, but it also talks about, you know, made from sugar, tastes like sugar. And so this type of, you know, what is this about? Communicating your brand and that brand message is important in what's going on. Then you have things like the information panel, which we talked about, the nutrition facts label. You know, this is where we include ingredient listing, names and addresses of manufacturers or distributors, you know, the number of servings, disclosure statements, recipe ideas, history of the company or product, those types of things about, you know, here's just some information about what's going on, and enjoying and really communicating those ideas to your consumers. Now branding, again, is this combination. It's about the label and the logo working together. about identifying your company through the logo, informing your consumers through the label, being consistent in your logo, not changing it drastically unless, you know, there's a major PR campaign around that. You know, your logo is still universal, it's attached to your company and can stand alone, while the label is still, you know, it's going to vary depending on the different products you use. If you change formulas in your formulations, it's very specific to what's going on in the production process. It's typically, it is attached to an item, right? It's on the product, and it features a logo. So it's, you know, it's incorporating both of these parts into your branding message that's important. And so when you talk about branding, we need to make sure that branding is an important part of your overall message as a company and will help you be successful in the long term. So when we talk about logo designs, I'm going to chat about this real briefly. You know, the first thing is, have you identified a company name? And we'll talk about company names a little bit more here in a second. But making sure that you have a company name, it's very distinct, and it, you know, you've completed the trademark search to make sure nobody else has that name within your state at minimum. You can, I'll show you the website here that you can search on to check all of that. Have you looked at designs that you want to do? Does somebody else have a similar design? Have you identified the type and style of your logo, right? Do you want it to be an abstract thing? Do you want it to be a font? Do you want it to be illustrative? And see here, I have a lot of different examples here of what these different things are about. River's Edge, right? We actually have a little bit of a, this is more about being stylized font, having the river run through the R. We have the specialty sauce and the JWF foods. You know, they used an illustrative type of logo. So understanding what other people are using, making sure that you're identifiable from your competitors, and picking what you want. And think about colors. I'm not the best person to talk to about colors, but colors are important, right? You don't want something that hurts people's eyes. You want it to be catchy, but you want it to also be representative of your company. So when we talk about Coca-Cola, they have this red font, right? But their cans are the same color. And they've created a way to make sure that that stands out on top of their cans. And it's not completely different from, you know, that branding message and that color message. So think about what you're trying to really communicate with color, as well as the type and style of your logo. Now, if you're just starting out as a business and you don't have a business name yet, this is the first place you need to start when you start thinking of business names. So you need to search the Commonwealth of Virginia State Corporation Commission site. I have the web link there. If you just search Commonwealth Virginia Corporation Commission site and do check name distinguishability or check name or anything like that, it should pop up in Google pretty quickly. Should be one of your top results. But this is where you go, you enter the name of the company that you're thinking about using, and it'll return. It's a little slow, so give it about 30 seconds and it'll populate. But it'll tell you, oh, this is not distinguishable. The name you entered into the bar is not distinguishable from this company or this list of companies. And so being really cautious about that and doing your due diligence of doing this up front. If you've already started your business, you have a business name, right? Hopefully you've already done this and you can see if that's that your company name is still available if you haven't done it. But registering that name so that you lay claim to it, because once you've registered that, anybody else tries to use anything too close to it, anything like that, you know, you have legal options to make sure that nobody's, you know, tarnishing your name of your business and things like that. So definitely go here, register your business name, and make sure that you are getting the credit for your stuff as well as having some legal rights for your business. And going back to label design a little bit, one of the big things you need to think about, and this is especially if you're doing a food product, before you go talk to Joelle Eifert in the VT Food Innovations Lab, or Food Innovations Program, think about containers, because that's also going to be a lot about your brand message. Are you using glass? So if we talk about Homestead Creamery, they're using a glass milk bottle. That is a very strong statement they're making, right? It's a part of their branding message, right? We offer it in a glass bottle that, you know, it's environmentally friendly. They have that on their packaging. That container says a lot about, you know, what they're offering and who they are. Having a different container is part of your branding message, right? How do you separate yourself from all the other barbecue sauces and jams and jellies out there? That's the idea of, you know, looking at a container, using that as part of your brand message. That's also going to dictate a lot of your label design and your logo design and how you get it all on there. Talking to the printer, somebody who's going to print these labels, about sizes and costs and what they offer, and, you know, making sure that what they can offer works for you. Finalizing ingredients, you know, thinking about a nutrition facts panel. You don't always need the nutrition facts panel if you're still pretty small scale, but once you try to get into a grocery store and stuff like that, you need the nutrition facts panel. A UPC code, you can go and register for a UPC code specifically for each of your products. So that's a little barcode that you see on all the products at the grocery store, as well as the ones here on the screen. And then again, think about colors, because colors really are going to change the way you look at things. And so that was a really quick and brief way to talk about all of this, and I'm gonna stop there. And if you have any questions, please send them through the chat. I told you I wasn't going to keep you the whole time. Trying to be brief. We can talk if marketing labels is something you want to talk more about. I can do another webinar, but those get really specific, and I have to talk a lot about regulation with those. So I didn't quite get that here, but branding your product is important. And so if you have any questions related to branding, what I talked about today, send them through the chat, and I'll hang on here for a while and answer any questions that come across. Well, so far no questions. I'm not going to keep you here much longer unless a question pops up here through the chat. Again, thank you for joining on today's webinar. We will have one more webinar in this series next Friday at 10 a.m. with Dr. Kim Morgan, who's going to talk about direct marketing resources if you're doing anything farmer market related or trying to do farm to restaurant, anything along those lines. Dr. Kim Morgan will be able to talk about that. Quick question here. Does registering your name with the Virginia website you shared protect your brand name nationally? And the answer to that is no. That is to get the state, that's just statewide that protects your name. If you want to go nationally, you have to go through a federal register, and unless you're just doing regionally, if you're trying to do nationally, then you have to go through federal. If you're doing just kind of neighboring states, that those neighboring states have their own commission websites that you can go to and register and say you're an out-of-state business selling your product in those states. So that's one way to do that. So this is a good point somebody brought up. You know, having a food business and being small, a lot of times you might print the stuff yourself. You can print labels at home. That's certainly one option you have. And that does play into having a lot of control over what you're doing when you create your logo and things like that, and being kind of a graphic designer in a way that really gives you the options and really gives you the option to play with that. If you're not creative like me, Virginia Tech has some services actually that you can use to kind of help get somebody to help you make a logo. There's plenty of companies out there to do that. The Small Business Development Center will have some names for you to help with that as well. So, other questions? And just in case anybody is typing right now, again, Kim Morgan next week. It's the last one in the webinar series. I will hope you'll all get a survey after next week, and I'll have links for all of these webinars in case you want to revisit it or send it to somebody. I will send that through the webinar. Quick question here on how to relate this to a branding for a farmer's market. So with farmers markets, the big thing is, right, there's more than one person selling your product. There's more than one person selling a tomato or a head of lettuce or any of those different types of things, and even a lot of value-added products like pastas. People are making that as well and selling it at farmers markets. The one thing here is, again, have something distinguishable so that in case your booth moves around, right, from year to year or even from week to week, people can find you. So having a logo, displaying that logo at your booth is very important, making sure you have a big enough way to identify yourself. And on top of that, you know, telling your farm story, telling your story about the background and how you're growing things, that's what people are really resonating with today in today's society. And so making sure that you are telling that story, maybe just have a brief little, you know, I'm not talking a whole lot of stuff, just a few sentences with a logo displayed, you know, on an easel at your booth. It doesn't need to be a lot. And then that will help you as an individual. The next question is, you know, how about a logo for the entire farmers market? Some farmers markets are doing it. That has to be collective and has to be talked about with the board of the farmers market. But that is an option, especially with the growth of farmers markets today. I would get with your local, your neighboring vendors and things like that, and your farmers market board of directors, and talk about it and say, you know, can we brand this and create a logo for this and advertise this and say, hey, you know, we do have one here. We're not that far from, you know, Bradford or Blacksburg or Wissville, or if you're in Nova, you know, you've got, you know, all of that up there with Arlington. Okay, well, we're farther away from Arlington, but we have a local farmers market. So that's something to really talk about with your board of directors. But create a logo. I mean, marketing and branding is all a part of that. And when you work together on that and are able to use that, and I would suggest having some guidelines. Like I have guidelines here that I can only use Virginia Tech's logo in certain ways. I would encourage you to do part of that, but I think it's a great idea for a farmer's market as a whole to market that as well. Okay, next question. So doing any customer research regarding the logo choices you might be considering, given you're a small entrepreneur and don't have much to spend, and the resources available to kind of help you to do that in an affordable way. What you can do, and this is where I encourage you to use the Small Business Development centers throughout the state. Conaway Haskins talked about that last week, but they will be able to do the market research for you. They offer that for free, so it is very affordable. They do a lot of one-on-one consulting for free, and they can help you search for those. They have databases all over about it. But an easy way to also look at it is to just go into Google and see what's available. What are people using for products like yours? It's not hard to do, and you can narrow it down somewhat to say, okay, is there anybody like this in Virginia? And if you know of other companies that are selling that you would be considered competitors, look at what they're using and see, you know, is this working for them? How successful are they? Because the branding message is, that logo is a very important part of the branding message. And if it's not communicating with their customers, it's not going to be, they're not going to be that successful. So it is important. It's an important part of your business, and you need to put a lot of thought into it. But Google searches, Google's free, right? But your small business development centers do a lot of market research, have a lot of access to a lot of that, and they can help you with it. So do go to their websites, find your local SBDC, and set up a meeting to talk to somebody about it. These are all great questions. I kind of gave you a quick overview in this, and these are the types of things that, as you get moving through a business, if you've started one or you're thinking about starting one, these are things that'll come up. And so great questions from everybody. I'm gonna, if there's no other questions, feel free to reach out to me at my email, which is, you've all gotten my email, so feel free to directly respond to that. Send me a separate email about any other questions you have about that, and we'll chat about it. But really, again, your resources for market research and stuff like that is to go to your SBDC, and they can help you with it. But again, next week, Dr. Kim Morgan is going to be on here talking about direct marketing resources. She'll talk a lot about Market Ready and Market Maker and the resources available to you throughout the state. So if you have any questions and are excited about that, that's our last one in the series. So do join, and you've stuck it out. If you've been on all three so far, you've stuck it out, and please stick it out one more week with us, and hopefully we can help you out. And again, I'll send out links to all these webinars once I have them ready to go. But thank you all for joining, and I'll chat with y'all next week.